Greetings, my good bitches. The name's Francis, Coke Francis. I'm an editor, Twitch streamer, drag artist, and I'm here because, oh my gosh, you guys, you'll never believe this, and neither will my middle school self, but I actually made another friend today. And I've played enough JRPGs to know that it always comes down to the power of hashtag friendship. A few months ago, I was approached by political maestro, professional secret agent, master gamer, and my YouTube crush, Dead Domain, for a collaboration where we would both do what we did best. Not just roasting conservatives, but getting to the bottom of how exactly we got here in the height of our current culture war. See, the Daily Wire wasn't always the supreme/bankrupt overlord of conservative slop content. They are simply following in the footsteps of the grifters that we grew up with during the 90s and 2000s. Namely, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, and Bill O'Reilly. Ever since the devil incarnate himself repealed the Fairness Doctrine in 1987, it opened the floodgates for an incessant stream of propaganda that's pretty much just now state TV for the guy who just guest starred on South Park. So today, join Dead Domain and me for the worst show and tell session of all time as we spill the tea and share some not so fun facts about the weirdos who paved the way for the mess we're in today. However, it should be noted that this video is actually part 2 of a 2-part series. So be sure to watch part 1 on Dead Domain's channel first. I have linked it in the description box below. This video is a bit different from the type of stuff I normally do. I promise I'll be back to my usual shtick later this month. But for now, please enjoy this very special episode that I had the pleasure of making with one of my favorite fellow content creators. And I know you may be thinking, but Francis, you just wore that outfit and wig a few videos ago. You've fallen off, bro. What happened? I had actually originally planned that outfit for this collaboration, with it being from the 2000s and whatnot, and I ended up liking it so much that I wore it for my Hetero Awesome Fest video as well. So, I don't know, cope? But before we get into it, if you are a fan of watching a very tired drag queen talk about nerd shit forever, I ask that you please put all your time and money and energy into a project that you're really passionate about. One that's really personal, really means the world to you, and your faith in it is unwavering. But when you finally debut this project and literally nobody cares, quite literally pull out a last-ditch effort by going ahead and unzipping your pants and dick slapping those like and subscribe buttons as hard as you can.
There's a Christian faith film I need to review. I think I'm going to do it this month. The concept is basically, what if Jesus taught MMA?
I watched the fuck out of that.
It came and went without a whisper. Also, there's a action movie. It looks like John Wick, if John Wick was a Orthodox Jewish rabbi, and it's called Guns and Moses.
That rips. That
I've seen multiple trailers for it, and I'm like, okay, July 17th, I'm seated. Let's go.
Guns and Moses. Holy fuck. That title goes so hard.
Are you ready now to hear a little bit about Glenn Beck?
I am so ready to hear about Glenn Beck.
Riding Rush's coattails through much of the mid-aughts was Glenn Beck, who for many will be most recognizable from that time he cried on air and the ridiculous conspiracy theories he shilled on a short-lived Fox News slot, accompanied by the trademark whiteboards that he would scribble his fantasies onto. So he became kind of famous as a meme, a very early meme, for just having these whiteboards that he would like draw things onto and then just underline them and be like, Soros, yes, getting all the money from here. And it wasn't actually explaining much, but it did give, kind of like you were talking about with Sean Hannity not really having a unique flavor. It gave Beck a very recognizable like vibe.
Ross Perot did that too.
Yeah.
Ross Perot and Al Gore, they had their little charts.
Oh, people love a little chart. So stop me if you've heard this one before, but Beck started working in radio straight out of high school and didn't really care much for it aside from being shocking and provocative for attention, which is such a common background for conservative talking heads at this point. You might be able to select it on the character creation screen. For a taste of his shock jock antics, one prank he pulled was calling the wife of a rival pop station jockey on the air and mocking her recent miscarriage.
What?
He called the wife of a radio jockey from a different station who had had a miscarriage and on the air asked her and made fun of it.
That's so gross.
That is the perfect.
That's legitimately upsetting.
Right? Like that is so
Jesus. I don't have a joke for that.
No, it is a look at, much like Rush Limbaugh and his, playing well-known queer songs to essentially celebrate gay people dying of AIDS. It gives you such a look into somebody's lack of empathy or understanding. And I feel how that ties into the way that they will sensationalize or try and sell almost anything to get attention, which is, I feel that's almost a prerequisite for becoming a conservative talking head, especially in the mid-aughts.
Jesus Christ.
For about a full decade, from 1990 to 99, he was shuffled from one radio station to another, garnering controversy, like when he did a racist Asian accent on air, accompanied by a gong sound effect. And so he was not really a very good DJ. He kept getting fired and then rehired at like these small places all around the country, which is something that also happened, by the way, with Matt Walsh before Matt Walsh was taken under the Daily Wire's wing. Instead of going to college, he attempted to self-educate, and by his own attestation, straight out of high school, he was like, okay, I'm going to educate myself on everything I need to know, and I'm just going to go to the library, I'm going to Goodwill hunt it. The 6 authors he chose that he has talked about on record are Alan Dershowitz, famous Trump, Epstein, and Harvey Weinstein legal defender, Pope John Paul II, Adolf Hitler, Carl Sagan, Billy Graham, and Friedrich Nietzsche.
That is quite the lineup.
It really is. So he has always been one of these people who he'll talk about like, oh, I read things to understand all sides, but he still manages to, despite all the things he's claimed to read, not really understand, I think, any side, which is almost impressive.
That's like as varied as my on repeat on Spotify.
It's an eclectic mix. Yeah, for sure. In 2002, he started his own Mercury Radio Company, which was named after Orson Welles' Mercury Theater. And he has the most bizarre hyperfixation on Orson Welles. He absolutely idolizes him. And from there, Glenn kind of laid out a template that we've seen a lot, particularly with things like the Daily Wire, where he really tried to expand where his reach exceeded his grasp. And he used the cachet that he had kind of garnered as this Fox News talking head to try to make a bigger name for himself and something in a media empire, which failed, which is why you don't really hear too much about Glenn Beck now, whereas back in the day, he was like the hottest shit. So he caught his break when he started his own commentary show in 2000, based out of Tampa, Florida, the sweaty hole of the USA. From there, he had a fairly meteoric rise, aided in part by the wave of American idiocy from the early 2000s, where jingoism and bullheaded bigotry became en vogue following 9/11. It's notable in the decade before this, he was essentially just falling laterally instead of upward, and it wouldn't be until post-2001 Florida that he found a niche to exploit. And he became insanely popular once he started doing this political commentation, where he would just say any wild shit and the people of Florida would eat it up. His Fox News show in 2008 was his big coming out, and a lot of people started reporting on him because he just say shit. He would just go out there and say shit. Doesn't matter if he had any facts to back it up. Whereas now we can look at Fox News and it is essentially state TV for Donald Trump. There was a point at which it at least pretended to be about journalism. And Glenn Beck was kind of the pivoting point for that, from journalism to just the most brazen propagandistic talking points. This is from a Howard Kurtz article on Glenn Beck in 2010. Quote, with his celebrity fueled by a Time cover story, books, cheerleading role at protest rallies, and steady stream of divisive remarks, Beck is drawing big ratings, but there is a deep split within Fox between those, led by Roger Ailes, who are supportive, and many journalists who are worried about the prospect that Beck is becoming the face of the network. By calling President Obama a racist and branding progressivism a, quote, cancer, Beck has achieved a lightning rod status that is unusual even for the network owned by Rupert Murdoch. And that in turn has complicated the channel's efforts to neutralize White House criticism that Fox is not really a news organization. Beck has become a constant topic of conversation among Fox journalists, some of whom say they believe he uses distorted or inflammatory rhetoric, and that undermines their credibility, end quote.
Accurate.
Yeah. So while he didn't actually stay with Fox forever, his impact would be felt because that network now functions as almost exclusively biased propaganda for right-wing authoritarianism in America.
Yeah.
And probably most important, it seems looking back that Beck's head-turning outbursts and headline-grabbing propagandizing was the catalyst for the station to drop any pretense of being an actual journalistic organization. From his leaving Fox, he would then found the Blaze TV, which is incidentally where modern luminaries like Matt Walsh cut their teeth before being given more prominent platforms. In between between Matt Walsh working as a shitty shock jock DJ and him having his own blog and filming daddy vlogs from his car, Matt wrote a lot on The Blaze. But I really want to talk about, the thing that I really want to talk about with Glenn Beck is his failed attempt at a media empire. Because while Glenn has faded from the lofty prominence he enjoyed at the height of his popularity in the Xbox 360 era, many of the current crop of conservatives trying to make cultural waves are, even if unwittingly, following in his colorful sweater-covered footsteps. Like I said, Beck has always idolized Orson Welles and wanted to build a media empire like his idol. At his height, he was pumping out a preposterous amount of media, including political books and thrillers, but also kind of philosophy, like his original cover of Common Sense meant to replicate the impact of Thomas Paine's original, except it was mostly just half-sourced conspiracies and misconstrued stories about the Obama administration. He tried his hand at political thrillers with The Overton Window, which is best described as Timu Ayn Rand, but even when I read it as a middle schooler who was pilled to the gills on conservative shit, I was like, this is dumb. But for Glenn Beck, the true mark of his artistic mastery was the Christmas sweater.
Let's go.
Are you familiar with the Christmas sweater?
I am not, but I can't wait to be.
So to me, growing up, the Christmas sweater was just a book, a bad book, but it was just like a little Christmas storybook. The amount of effort Glenn Beck put into this, you remember that time, I forget his name, which serves him right, but do you remember that time that one shithead writer said like, man, if I do this right, the Netflix film Bright could be my Star Wars?
No.
So the writer of
Oh
that
my
movie
God.
famously said that. And that's kind of the same amount of inflated false confidence Glenn Beck had for what is essentially a worse version of several Christmas stories smushed together.
So funny.
Yeah, the thing to understand about Beck is that while he is at his core a crass and cruel pea-brain, he covers it with this schlocky Norman Rockwell magazine cover idea of what the spirit of America is, which is usually just him delivering his impassioned monologues by referring to vague notions of bygone American identity. You can see how Glenn really rose to prominence in the era that just barely preceded things like Gamergate and the Manosphere. The Christmas Sweater is an earnest fictionalized account of his childhood and is the pinnacle of his dumbassery, and I suspect part of why nobody takes him seriously anymore. I don't actually need to go too much into the story because the story is about this ungrateful dipshit of a kid who is mad that his poor mom just made him a Christmas sweater instead of getting him a cool bike. His mom dies in a car accident. He blames himself. He goes to live with his grandparents. He meets a mysterious stranger named Russell, who is not so subtly meant to be Jesus. So Jesus appears to him as a homeless person. And you can kind of already see, like, it's some Gift of the Magi. It's some It's a Wonderful Life, because it turns out that after Eddie runs away and gets caught in a snowstorm that's meant to represent the devil, he wakes up and his mom is actually still alive and everything is fine now. And he's learned his lesson that, you know, you have to appreciate what you have in the moment, and Christmas is bigger than bikes or whatever. Incidentally, the movie Krampus tells almost the exact same story, but much better.
They don't have an original bone in their bodies.
No.
They really do not. At
Reading
all.
through it, like, and that's the reason I didn't clip anything from it, is that it is so thin and it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. But you might think that this was just a one-off for Glenn, but he really wanted this to be a big thing. He genuinely believed in this project and that it would become like part of some artistic legacy of his, which makes it so much more delicious that it failed.
The Dill Burrito of his career.
Oh yeah. If you would react to this video I just sent on Glenn Beck's The Christmas Sweater. And we don't have to watch the whole thing.
Loving this Windows Movie Maker title.
Oh yeah. That's most of the stuff it put out.
About the last Christmas gift I received from my mother, and it was a sweater. And for years and years and years, it sat on the shelf of my closet, and it was associated with guilt and the end of my childhood and everything else. It's almost like the sweater wanted to be taken off the shelf.
Like, he took this so seriously. Like, that is a fucking...
Tom Segura did something similar recently, and it's just like, dude, nobody cares. When you make a documentary about the making of something...
Like, he wanted to document this as it was happening. Like, it was history unfolding before him.
We knew we had a great story, but that's all we had.
Initially, we were really concerned about how do we pull it off.
How do we pull it off?
Isn't it crazy? All right, this is the tip of the iceberg. So I'm sending you next the trailer that they did.
God. Let's go.
So there was a live stage show. I cannot find anything about it.
Story that I remember vividly with my mother on that last Christmas.
My side job is freelance editing,
Uh-huh.
and this is physically painful for me.
It's rough. It's
bad
stuff.
editing is like physically so painful for me.
The live simulcast in movie theaters nationwide.
The fact that this is not a parody.
Wait until you get to like 125 and how they try and dramatically zhuzh it up.
And I don't want to miss it.
All right, cool. I didn't need that seizure.
Yeah. Apologies for all of this, but
Oh no. I'm eating this shit up. Why is 90% of this just his eyes and nose?
oh no, look at the next video I sent you. This gives a little bit of a look at what the stage show actually looked like. This is what the Fathom event you would go to see in the theaters. This giant presentation that he put on with like an orchestral soundtrack.
December 3rd, Glenn Beck returns to movie theaters with a new installment of The Christmas Sweater.
It was a simpler time.
God, it was.
Hi, this is Glenn Beck. It is the story of faith, and tragedy, redemption, and hope.
Go to fathomevents.com for theaters and ticket information.
It really is his dill burrito.
He was
Such a symbol of like,
into
I
it.
have faith in this thing that nobody gives a
I mean, you gotta have,
Wish
you
I had that
gotta
kind of
have.
confidence.
Straight up, I'm like, man, I would have 2 finished movie scripts if I had this kind of confidence. This is simply labeled, it was uploaded 17 years ago on the channel Glenn Beck Videos. It is simply labeled Glenn Beck 2007 Christmas Tour Promo 4. So he would do these speaking tours, and this is kind of tied into what the Christmas sweater was. This is the level of production quality he was really giving.
Kid, aren't you a little pig to be in Santa's lap?
A fat joke coming from you?
He doesn't have that much hair.
Not anymore, he certainly doesn't. Also, that looks nothing like Glenn Beck.
And now I can kung fu the relatives you don't like.
I'm sorry, that's unironically really funny. If I had seen that on TV when it came out in 2007, I would have been howling.
This last one, you don't really need to have the volume on or anything. Just skip around and get an idea of what the 2+ hours, one-man stage show, The Christmas Sweater, felt like for people.
Man, he's not even wearing a sweater. I feel ripped off already.
So I'm laying in bed and is that the lawnmower? And now I'm starting to get more and more angry because now I'm thinking to myself, which one of my hillbilly neighbors is up mowing the lawn at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Like, he's not a...
Is he doing stand-up? Is this one night stand?
Kind of. I don't understand. It's one of those things in hindsight. I'm like, no, it really was a different time because how the he doesn't have like a magnetic stage presence. He doesn't have like a lot of charisma. He's not necessarily fun to watch. He's kind of just walking back and forth as he's talking. It's not like he's really, you know, looking out or motioning to the audience. He's kind of bad at it. But he was, for a brief time, his spark burned so brightly as one of the most famous names in conservatism.
I have to, sorry, I gotta look at the comments.
No, you're good. I need to, oh, that's a great idea.
Oh, they are all positive.
5 stars. Oh, these are all 15 years ago. Let me see if there's a, nope, most recent one is 15 years ago.
Okay, that's enough of a roast.
That's pretty good.
Oh my God. Yeah, no riz.
So to close off our section on Glenn Beckethus, the problem with Glenn is that his schmaltzy star rose and descended just as Gamergate and the Manosphere were incubating, making his Colonel Sanders in a sweater thing unappealing at best right after he was most relevant. He also, and this is probably most important to his current irrelevance, he was one of the few voices to continue betting against Trump in the 2016 election, whereas Rush was nonstop focused on supporting Trump at all costs.
Yeah.
Glenn Beck thought he was a bad image, a bad look for the party, whereas now he's on board because he ultimately will go where the money and the wind takes him instead of sticking by any principles. He mostly kind of just sticks to his own little corners of the conservative kingdom and occasionally appears in god-awful Christian propaganda slop like the feature film Nefarious, which I did also a review of.
I still gotta see that.
I might recommend, if you can get some friends together, Nefarious might be one of the more funny movies movies to like get high to, because there is always something to laugh at least. Like it's boring on its own, but there is always something you can kind of laugh at or talk about.
It's funny how you mention how like they always all pivot to Trump eventually. Jonathan was unique in that he was like pro-Trump like right from the get-go. I and Pepperidge Farms remember when Ben Shapiro was a never Trumper, and most of the people at the Daily Wire, they were conservative, but they were not pro-Trump. And now on their site, they sell all sorts of 47 merch. It just says 47. It doesn't say Trump on it. It just says 47. It's all the money. He dominates the news cycle because nobody knows how to ignore the trolls. Nobody knows how to ignore the rage bait. That's part of how Rush and Glenn and folks all had. That's how most of these folks got big. The ones that we're talking about today. Early rage bait. It was pre-internet rage baiting.
I think it's one of those things where you've seen this level of escalation in places like the shithead forums, like Kiwi Farms and 4chan and stuff, where things will start out at one level of extremity, but before long, when you invite so many extreme viewpoints in and you don't take any kind of effort to fact check or prioritize telling the truth above ideology, what you're going to lead to is just a constant cascading effect of more and more and more extreme and transgressive and misanthropic viewpoints. And I think that's what you really see, where as much as Glenn Beck did open the door for some of the shitheads we're seeing today, it's like looking at Elvis or Fats Domino or something and being like, well, that's not real rock and roll. Listen to this, grandpa, and put on like death metal or something. And it's like, you can kind of see how they got there, but man, this is not that.
Rizless behavior.
Absolutely rizless behavior. So speaking of rizless, would you like to lead us through the valley of the shadow of Bill O'Reilly?
So here's the interesting thing about Bill O'Reilly. He's not rizless. He's not likable by any means, but he has a presence. He has Riz the way Trump has Riz. It's not a good one, but it's there and it's undeniable, and that's how he draws people. Like Riz will take you so far.
The one thing I will say about him over everybody else we've spoken about is that he does have a very signature cadence and tone. Having, again, watched a lot growing up, there was a point I was watching Tucker Carlson at some point for a video, and I was like, oh, he just took Bill O'Reilly's like whole flow. He straight up took the way he talks, the way he enunciates, the way he will like ask questions to the audience. But that's not what Democrats really want, is it? It's a very specific way of itching the boomer brain. It lulls them into this sense of susceptibility. You can just open up their skull and pour whatever bullshit you want into it.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because Billiam O'Reilly, when he was first brought to Fox in 1996, his show was originally called The O'Reilly Report, but it was later changed to The O'Reilly Factor because there was this O'Reilly twist and presentation of his statements that was like very specific to him, and they called it The O'Reilly Factor, and that's how he got the name of the show.
I mean, he was good at that branding, kind of like Trump. Like he is a natural branding person. The way he would talk about like cool points and shit, and would have like his little segments that everybody remembered. Yeah,
he worked at several different radio stations. He was one in Pennsylvania, one in Texas, Denver, Connecticut, New York. Like he was on a bunch of radio stations throughout the 70s and 80s. And one of his colleagues from the Texas station said, quote, "In a business where there are a lot of reprehensible people, he stood out as particularly dishonest, obnoxious, and self-centered." And then, okay, so here's Bill O'Reilly's villain origin story. I have an elaboration on this in the fun facts section as well. So in the 80s, he finally landed a spot on CBS and he thought it was going to be his big break. And he decided to go to Buenos Aires in 1982 to cover the Falklands War. According to him, there was a major riot in the city that he was in the middle of, and he claimed that several people were killed, and he also claimed that his cameraman, quote, hit his head and was bleeding from the ear on the concrete, and the army was chasing us. He also described the footage they captured as, quote, the best news footage I've ever seen. Okay, Miss Trump. But he really blew a gasket when he found out that veteran reporter Bob Schieffer would be doing the report and Billy Boy would not be included in any segments on the story, which they said was like a routine editing editing decision, which I am inclined to believe as somebody who's worked in post-production. He yelled, quote, "I didn't come down here to have my footage used by that old man," he said about a reporter who was 45. And then in 2015, a former CBS correspondent disputed some of O'Reilly's claims in a post on Facebook, and he said, quote, "No one who reported back to our hotel newsroom after the disturbance was injured. If a cameraman had been bleeding from the ear, he would have immediately reported that to his superiors at the hotel, and the riots were also allegedly tame. Nobody was killed, and no shots were fired into the crowd." So he just made that shit up.
Jesus Christ. Wow.
Yeah. And then he was kind of in like limbo at CBS. So he went to P-Town, Massachusetts to talk about how it had become a gay mecca, and then was trying to stitch like Frankenstein together a piece on how this somehow posed a danger to children. And even in the early 80s, homophobia was like at its peak. The network still wouldn't air it. And then he like got booted from CBS. So I think that was his villain origin story. I have evidence. But after that, he joined Inside Edition, where the very famous video of him saying, "It, we'll do it live," was born.
We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yes, let's go. A true classic. I say it all the time. If you have to get up to go get like a glass of water or something when I'm streaming, I'll yell it off camera. It's kind of iconic. I'm not gonna lie.
It's iconic. It's cathartic. That's about where the relatability ends. And then he went to Fox, started the O'Reilly Report, and he regurgitated all the exact same like hawkish, pro-Bush, tough guy, conservative jargon that everybody on Fox is doing. But he denied even being a conservative, and he claimed that the media just called him one to silence him, even though there was literally a book about him called The Man Who Would Not Shut Up. And he said, quote, "Their point is, this is a conservative. You don't have to listen to him. I'm not out there like Rush Limbaugh trying to convert you to be a conservative, or like Michael Kinsley trying to convert you to be a liberal. My job is to analyze things honestly, tell you why I think it, and back it up." Okay, Diva. So while Hannity didn't exploit any specific types of story, like aside from like Trump deep throating, he didn't sensationalize a whole lot of stuff, whereas Bill O'Reilly would do that specifically with reports about child mistreatment and or abuse. What else taps into somebody's emotions more than hearing about kids getting hurt? Like, I hate kids.
Another thing,
kids to get hurt.
Yeah, like it's another thing that we see conservatives still using, manipulating, and lying about today.
I wrote down he owes his career to sex predators the way I owe mine to the Daily Wire. And then this brings us to the sexual harassment lawsuits. So Billiam struck a $32 million deal to settle 5 harassment allegations, which is the highest payout in Fox history. Fox then gave him a 4-year extension that paid $25 million a year. And it was only after 60 companies withdrew their advertising and there was a growing backlash from even Fox viewers that they finally announced that Billiam would not be returning. The sexual misconduct scandal to podcasting pipeline is truly real, because in 2017 he launched a podcast called No Spin News, which I guess is a reference to his book, The No Spin Zone. Always hang on to this story. It is
fucking hysterical.
Yeah.
His whole thing was that you've entered the no spin zone where, we aren't gonna lie or misconstrue anything.
Nothing.
Again,
it's all
perfect,
facts, baby.
Amazing branding for getting dullards to just be like, this is the no spin zone. Obviously what they're telling me is the truth. They wouldn't lie to me in the no spin zone. They wouldn't spin something. Come on.
Genius branding. Oh, okay. Here's my evidence for why his CBS downfalls is villain origin story. So in 1998, Billiam published a revenge fantasy thriller called Those Who Trespass. And here's how the New Yorker summarized it. Here's also a content warning for violence, gore, and death. And with that, I will continue.
Go for it. Yeah.
This is the New Yorker's summary. Quote, "A tall, BS intolerant television journalist named Shannon Michaels, the product of 2 Celtic parents, is pushed out by Global News Network after an incident during the Falkland Islands War." They didn't even change the fucking and then by a local station, and he systematically murders the people who ruined his career. He starts with Ron Costello, the veteran correspondent who stole his Falkland story. Michaels stalks the woman who forced his resignation from the network and throws her off a balcony. He next murders a television research consultant who had advised the local station to dismiss him. He buries the guy in beach sand and lets him slowly drown. Finally, during a break in the Radio and Television News Directors Association convention, he slits the throat of the station manager. O'Reilly describes each of these killings, the careful planning, the suffering of the victim, the act itself, in loving detail. End quote.
This was when? 1998?
Yeah. This was like 13 years after he left CBS, like 2 years after he started the Riley Factor. Do you want a brief excerpt?
Oh boy, do I, more than anything.
This is the one that the New Yorker sampled, same article. Quote, the assailant's right hand, now holding the oval base of the spoon, rocketed upward, jamming the stainless stem through the roof of Ron Costello's mouth. The soft tissue gave way quickly, and the steel penetrated the correspondent's brainstem. Ron Costello was clinically dead in 4 seconds, end quote. So you can really see the influences here. Chaucer, Keats, all the greats.
The use of prose is reminiscent of Joyce. It's
I know, right?
wild to me that I've never heard about this, and more people don't talk about the fact that he wrote a blatant revenge fantasy.
Right. And here's the thing. I'm big on writing a story doesn't necessarily mean endorsement of the subject matter, right? Like I have a whole video on that. But he didn't even change the story that was stolen. It was the Falklands War. It was like a shot-for-shot remake, but this time he systematically That's so whack, dude.
That's crazy. Because people talk about the shitty Glenn Beck book. People talk about Ben Shapiro's terrible book, but like they really can't help all of their fiction just becoming a reflection of their bruised ego, or they cannot sublimate the id that just drives them to want to hurt others, even in their creative endeavors. It's wild.
Okay, so this thing I'm sending you, as I mentioned earlier, as unlikable as his personality was, he still had an actual personality. So when he would interrogate his guests like an overzealous cop, and then people would consume it the way they consumed the show Cops. So here's a interview from 2003 where he interviewed Jeremy Glick, who was the son of a 9/11 victim. All he had done was just sign a newspaper ad opposing the war in Afghanistan.
Why would I want to brutalize and further punish the people in Afghanistan? Who killed your father? The people in Afghanistan didn't kill my father. Sure they did. The Al-Qaeda people were trained there. The Al-Qaeda people? What about Afghanistan? See, I'm more angry about it than you are. So what about George Bush? What about George Bush? He had nothing to do with it. The director, senior, as director. He had nothing to do with it. The people that trained 100,000 mujahideen who were...
I hope your mom isn't watching this. I hope your mother is not watching this, because you... That's it. I'm not going to say any more. Okay. In respect for your father,
September 14th, I don't know what I was doing.
Shut up. In respect for your father, who was a Port Authority worker, a fine American, who got killed unnecessarily by barbarians.
By radical extremists trained by this government.
Respect
not
for
the
him.
People of America,
I'm not
the
going
people,
to
the ruling class, the small minority.
Cut his mic. I'm not going to dress you down anymore.
All of the comments are like reading Bill to filth. Everybody is on Jeremy Glick's side.
He's objectively right.
Cut his mic. He's right.
I love the, I'm not going to debate like the indignation he has of just being like, oh, how dare you? Alex Jones does the same thing. If anybody gets on a call, none of them will debate their points because they are afraid of people calling them out on it and actually having facts and evidence on their side. So they will always panic. They will always, that's crazy.
Jeremy Glick said that after the camera stopped rolling, he threw some more shade at Bill and the show. And Bill said, quote, "Get out of my studio before I tear you to pieces."
That is so funny. Oh, that would be a highlight of my life, honestly.
Right? To get a death threat from Bill O'Reilly, I would, oh my God. So, more Keith Olbermann goatedness. He petitioned multiple times to have Keith Olbermann removed from MSNBC. Here's why. Olbermann repeatedly referred to him winning a worst person in the world competition, and when talking about O'Reilly, he always tried to find a way to include a reference to falafel. Here's why. A few years prior, Fox producer Andrea Macris filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against O'Reilly after he described things he imagined they might enjoy doing together. One of these was them being in the shower and O'Reilly massaging her with a loofah, which he referred to as, quote, the falafel thing.
Wait, okay. Did he mistake the word loofah for falafel?
I don't know. God. Here's the coupling nobody asked for, Stu Riley.
Oh, let's go. Yeah.
So Jon Stewart and Bill O'Reilly were like homies. So O'Reilly has appeared on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart 15 times, and Stewart has made several appearances on The O'Reilly Factor. Stewart has called him the, quote, voice of reason on Fox News and compared him to, quote, the thinnest kid at fat camp.
Jesus. Oh man.
They participated in debates for charity a number of times. One of those debates was on the topic of white privilege, and at one point O'Reilly said, quote, "You think I'm sitting here because I'm white? What are you, a moron? I'm sitting here because I'm obnoxious, not because I'm white."
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
The next one's even funnier, actually.
Let's go.
On Jon Stewart's final show as the Daily Show host, O'Reilly briefly appeared and said, "Have fun feeding your rabbits, quitter."
He's kind of a roast master. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm sorry, that's so funny.
Have fun feeding your rabbit. That is the kind of shit that will run through your head for years afterwards.
I would have died laughing, like, if anybody said that to me, let alone Bill. I would live off
Incredible.
that, honestly. And then he later wrote a love letter to Jon Stewart in Deadline Hollywood. At one point he said, quote, "He will leave a void in the world of political satire. Undeniably, Jon Stewart was great at what he did, whatever that was." Sometimes he's funny.
Again, he has that like that Trump accidental humor where it's just like sometimes Trump will make like an offhanded joke and it's just so naturally funny that you wish he had invested his points into like actually being a comic or something, because he has a very natural flow when it comes to that stuff.
I'm still laughing about Meatball Ron. He's been an executive producer on 4 movies: Killing Lincoln, Killing Kennedy.
These were made into movies?
They're like TV movies on Nat Geo. Jesus. And last but not least, Killing Reagan. And
that
with
has to be
let's get into his books.
Yeah, like, so here's the thing with his books, and this is actually a great jumping off point, because I always kind of figured, having never read them, but I'm like, okay, you know what? I can at least from afar appreciate somebody who is more conservative minded, taking an earnest look at these historical events. It's history, and it's not told through isekai like with Rush, so how much can you really fuck it up?
I have 3 books for kids.
Oh, 3 books for kids. Okay.
So this book is called Give Please a Chance. It opens with, "Believe it or not, once upon a time, James and I, co-author of this book, were both kids. Life was much easier in those days because there were rules most Americans followed. Holding the door for someone, a nod and a hello, even just saying please. Most kids did those things back then, but now there is confusion in many places. James and I believe that we can bring that civility and compassion back into the world. Let's start today with our children by encouraging them to always say that wonderful, magical word, please." Now, there are 3 examples in this sample here, and one of them is not like the other, and you'll see what I mean. Give please a chance. God, that's horrifying.
Ooh, that's bad.
So the question, can I keep him? And it's like a big, dirty, flea-ridden dog.
Yeah, it's cute.
Please? Yeah.
Okay.
Can I lick the bowl? And it's kid baking cookies or whatever. Please. Fine. Daddy, make the splinter go away. Please.
I
turned very dark very quick.
This is like a creepy painting you would see in a Resident Evil,
it
where
really
you're just walking
is.
along and you just observe it and the character says something like, "This painting makes me feel uneasy, but I can't quite place why." It's technically just an innocent picture, but there's something so oppressive about it.
Because again, it's like, okay, bringing home a dirty, flea-ridden dog, can we keep him, please, please, please? You know, like, that makes sense. Perfectly reasonable. But, you know, trying to make your kid not injured, what's the worst? Like,
Jesus.
so I saw this, I'm like, okay, one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, this is not that.
So he also did one called Kids Are Americans Too.
Oh, okay.
Setting, Friday Harbor, a quiet village on an island off the coast of Washington State. Boats, gulls, waves, breezes, you know the kind of thing. Sure. Scene, the modest home of single mother Carmen Dixon and her daughter Lacey, 14. Mom's home alone, the phone rings. Hello? This is Dixon. This is Sheriff Cumming. Could have picked any name. He
could have picked any two names instead of Dixon Cumming.
Is Lacey all right? She's fine, ma'am, so far as I know, but she's got a boyfriend who may be in trouble. I knew it. It's Oliver. He's too old for her. I think he mugged an old lady downtown and ran off with her purse. Lacey would never be involved with something like that. Yes, ma'am, but maybe Oliver, you know how he is, would brag to her and tell her what he did with the purse. I see. Well, I'll do what I can. So she puts down the receiver just as her daughter walks in. The phone rings again. Lacey, that's probably Oliver, Mom. I'll take it on the extension in my bedroom. Walks into the next room, very quietly picks up the kitchen phone. And then I took out the money and threw the old lady's purse into those weeds near the railroad crossing. Cut. Okay, so this little slice of reality TV might not make the top 10, but it's all true. It happened, and so did a lot more than that, as you'll see. I think the whole story is a good tease, as we say in TV, for this little book about your rights as an American kid. Mrs. Dixon told the sheriff what she heard about the purse. He found it along with other evidence about the crime. Oliver was arrested, convicted in a jury trial, and sentenced to 2 years in jail. Justice at work? Not according to the American Civil Liberties Union, which sent lawyers in, mouths blazing, to argue to the court that Lacey's constitutional rights had been violated when her mother eavesdropped on her private conversation with her beloved mugger. Wow, the hard ER too. I don't think you can say that anymore, man. So what? Well, that meant what Mrs. Dixon heard had not been legally obtained and therefore could not be used as evidence in a trial. Does that argument make any sense to you? Well, it did to the state Supreme Court. The judges agreed that the girl's right to privacy had been violated. So Oliver's conviction was thrown out of court. He was convicted in a second trial without Mrs. Dixon testimony, but that's another story. And it's like, I just don't have a strong opinion on it, and I don't know why he does. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like it's
like calm down.
Feels like literally the most scathing, worst example he could find. This is the real heavy shit. I guess because it is a kid's book, he can't go anything too heinous.
Yeah, like he can't talk about NAMBLA, but with so many different opinions, how can we ever make sense out of situations like this? And how can we know which rights are more important than other rights? Well, that's exactly what we're gonna find out in this book. By the time you finished reading the final chapter, I hope you'll understand the story of your own personal rights. It looks complicated at first, but we're going to have some fun with all of this stuff, I promise you. Oh, okay.
Christ.
So I'm guessing it's more of the same.
I wouldn't be too surprised. A survival guide? Whoa.
We have the O'Reilly Factor for Kids, a survival guide for America's families. The funniest thing about this is that he published this right around when the sexual harassment allegations revolving around the falafel thing came out.
Okay.
So the thing about this, at least in the sample that's available, it's not like bad advice, but it's also like, why are you having Bill Riley explain this to your kids when you should be doing that yourself?
Yeah, like why? No, it does go with everything else we were saying of this, just like it's more for the parents to be able to give content that they know will literally inflict their ideology upon children, to make sure that whatever the kids are consuming, there is a heavy tint of their ideological framework happening there.
So it's got big youth pastor sitting backwards in a chair energy. It has big how do you do fellow kids energy.
Hell yeah.
There's this girl being like, how do I handle peer pressure? Boys.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Bill O'Reilly, real masterful at dealing with teenagers and children.
Who better to get some life advice on being a teen than Bill O'Reilly? I wish I'd had this book when I was a teenager because, like Elizabeth, I had many concerns. Unfortunately, no one had written a realistic book for kids, so I made dumb mistakes, got in trouble because I was too stubborn to know better, and did things I wish I could forget. I'm going to tell you about some of those things in this book. Maybe you'll laugh at my boneheaded behavior, but that's okay. okay, as long as you end up smarter than I was at your age. What does an adult know? Well, I have a career that's lots of fun and makes me lots of money. Had to throw that part in there. I've also never forgotten what it was like to be a teenager. No one does. You might have seen me on my daily TV program, The O'Reilly Factor, or heard me on the radio. If you have, you know that I tell it straight no matter what. And I make sure my guests tell the truth too. This was published a year after the Jeremy Glick interview.
Incredible. You might know me from my TV show. Perhaps child whose parents have given this to you. Perhaps you've heard of me from Fox News or on the radio.
Telling yourself the truth is going to be one of the hardest jobs in your teen years. I'll show you how. I am as honest in this guide as I am on the air. No sugarcoating. This is straight stuff. At this stage of my life, I know who I am, and best of all, I know how to choose friends I can trust and stay away from people who are poison. I want you to have the same kind of knowledge, and I want you to have it now so you can get on top of life earlier than I did. Now I know that even though I have achieved success, I could have done much better along the way. I'm determined to show you how. You've said this 50 fucking times. But the O'Reilly Factor for Kids is not about me. This book is about you, about finding courage and willpower to be who you really are, about standing up for yourself, about doing the smartest thing.
Does he give fighting advice?
He had like a 10 commandments list. It wasn't like that bad of a list though. The O'Reilly list of true friendship factors.
I don't know. It is that same like, hello, fellow kids. It is like we are trying to pathologize in a way that will somehow resonate with children, but also we are not people who regularly interact with children. So
don't lie, be there in the bad times, be free with compliments, notice when something's wrong, know when to listen, know when to intervene, be yourself, let your friend be himself, whatever, and laugh a lot. Just that list alone, not bad advice, but it's also like, you should be teaching your kids this and not giving them a book by
yeah, like these are very, and most of these things are things that you kind of learn through
life,
like social interaction.
Yeah, just talk to people.
Okay, well, you know what?
Kids.
I was literally about to say, I'm like, Bill probably knows his audience. Those homeschool kids don't have social interactions. That makes sense.
Oh my God. My worst problem is the bullies in school. They're definitely going to get a call from the ACLU in their later life. It's not anything groundbreaking. It's just an old man rambling as if he was talking to you directly, and then you're like, okay, Uncle O'Reilly. Even if your kid is homeschooled, you should be the one telling your kid this and not like, hey, here's this book by the guy we watch on the news all the time.
For sure.
You know.
After everything we've talked about, all the people we've been through, I think there's been a lot of ups and downs, but I think one thing is for damn sure. Conservatives are really bad when they try and expand past, like I said, with Glenn Beck, their reach exceeds their grasp. It is not a unique observation to say that so many of them started out wanting to be in show business. It happened with Jeremy Boring. It happened with Ben Shapiro, famously, pretty much the entire Daily Wire, actually. It goes to show that like the reason so many people become conservatives or go these routes is because they would get laughed out of anywhere else.
Thanks, Dee Dee, and thank you for staying till this part of the video. As your special reward, let's check out the winning comments from the last 2 videos, as promised. Red Lobster says, "No, please, I don't want to be associated with the mayor of Whoville." If you haven't watched my cringy Daily Wire video, you will not understand, so get on that. Bad Hombre ADK says, Ben Shapiro was chosen to sign the bat because it's as wooden and dry as his wife. Jasper Axel says, you think they're so obsessed with tears because that's the only way they can make a woman wet? Swift Cass Holy says, you go through your whole life thinking Frances would be the Katya in her own, but then Vivian comes in and makes her the Trixie. I don't know, I thought I was the Katya the whole time because I was just laughing hysterically at everything my guest said. I'm also the older one out of the 2 of us. When Vivian said she had never seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit, I felt myself age 20 years in that moment. Yet another SH says, I can't help but feel as if Kanye West X's medication should have been suggested. Narcissa Lazarus says, I'll call this ship Coaxin. We're ready to rank the even more spicy ships for part 2, but there's only one chair because the other one broke. No! Vivian gasps. I'll just sit on the floor while we record, or maybe I could. Yes, you can sit on my lap. You too could be featured in the next video. Leave a comment below. I will pick my favorite ones and give you a shout out next time. But if you would like to guarantee your name be featured at the end of every video, please consider joining my Patreon. If you join any of the membership tiers that are conveniently named after Fallout protagonists, your name will be featured at the end of every video. You might also get other cool stuff like access to my Discord, behind the scenes content on how I make my wigs, ad-free and uncensored versions of my videos. So if you love my videos and my drag, you can support this channel directly by clicking the link to my Patreon in the description box. If you would like to see me simp for my favorite game characters and get visibly frustrated in real time, please follow me on Twitch.
The steaminess of your home appears to have increased suddenly. It must be because Lucinda Lavish stands before you now.
God damn it! And if you would like to see even more of my clown mug elsewhere, please consider following me on Instagram or Threads or Blue Sky. My handle for all of the above is @QueenCokeFrancis. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't done so already, please put all your time and money and energy into a project that you're really passionate about. One that's really personal, really means the world to you, and your faith in it is unwavering. But when you finally debut this project and literally nobody cares, quite literally pull out a last-ditch effort by going ahead and unzipping your pants and dick slapping those like and subscribe buttons as hard as you can. Thank you so much to Dead Domain for inviting me to collaborate on this video, and thank you to all of my patrons and subscribers who keep this channel going. And of course, as always, until next time,